Hello, Raymond fans. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. We are live. Joined today by Lew Schneider talking about the Christmas picture. I hope everybody had a good New Year. Hello, Gil. Hello, all people. Hello, Noah. Welcome to the new year. Hello, Teresa in Chicago. Hello, Leo in Toronto. Hello. Hello, everybody. I hope you all had a very good new year. This is the first Everybody Loves Raymond 360 live from 2022. Who saw, I'm not going to get into it too much. Let's see if, here, Lou. Who saw Being the Ricardos? Oh, there's Lou. Hello, UK. Hello, United Kingdom. Hello, Pacific Palisades. Hello, Lou.
Hello there, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. You know, I selfishly, I'm like, oh, I have Lou. I don't have to do any heavy lifting today.
And wrong again.
Oh, shit. Lou, I was just asking, and I don't want to get into a detailed discussion, but Being the Ricardos, which I saw, you said you saw.
You're not supposed to call anyone that.
I'm not supposed to call anybody?
Oh, Ricardos.
Yeah. I'm gonna reload that joke, Lou.
Sorry,
Let me scroll back.
Wow.
Let me scroll.
I'm gonna Purell the phone. Wow.
These. I don't think. Yeah, that doesn't cure bombing.
No. Okay.
So Lou, let's. Yeah. I only bring up Being the Ricardos. I don't want to get into a big discussion about it. The one thing, just because you're one of the few people that I talk to, because, you know, I talked to Ken Levine, who's written and directed, but very few people have been the star of a show, a writer on a show, and a director on the show, which you have been all of those. And so just the takeaway from watching it, I only want to talk about the writers, and I know you didn't watch it all.
No, I'm going to finish. I have to say I'm captivated by hearing and seeing a really beautiful version of Babalu in a club. It was amazing. Arriba con la conga, and everybody, the guys in the band saying, put aside their instruments, and they all play the congas. It's fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, I do have a problem with a lot of that show, like the idea, no actor, if you're an actor out there, don't get the idea that you can, I'm not spoiling it, I'm spoiling a tiny piece. Don't get the idea that you can call up your castmates and bring them down to the soundstage at 2 a.m. to re-rock the scene.
So, So I think, just for people who haven't watched the movie, the one thing that, Lou, I think you'll agree with, the real succinctly, the comedy writers are kind of characterized as being not funny and a little bit bumbling. And
they've done perfectly.
They've nailed that. They get in the way of comedy.
Sure.
Then the director is completely incompetent and terrible also. And the bigger takeaway, I think, which is more interesting to the viewers, even if they haven't seen the movie, is the complete 100% lack of fun that they are having.
Right. I think that they got in their head, you know, it's a classic narrative thing, which is like what you see in front, what you see on screen is half of it, and the other half is real serious, you know. Whatever it is, it's you know, if it was MASH, it's war as hell, but it was a great time in Korea. They had a ball, you know what I mean? When they were not in the operating theater, they were drinking martinis and having a blast. And the same thing here. All that laughter on screen. Well, when you cut away from that, it was nothing but drudgery and ill will. No, it's not how it is.
It's not how it is. So for people watching, the amount, especially just in the writer's room now, back in I Love Lucy days, they were new. They did 39 episodes in a year. Incredible. And it was only 3 people, and it was only 2 writers who were writing it, and then the showrunner, which was not a term that existed then, but the executive producer.
Also, they say things like, "You're killing it." I don't think in 1958 it's killing anything, but anyway.
And so I think they also, all 3 of them, and then I want to get away from this, but just for people watching, all 3 of the people that were the main people, the executive producer and the other 2 writers, had already worked together on her radio show for years. So they were all good friends. And so when you're watching that, just know, if you watch Being the Ricardos, for us, I think as comedy writers, you're like, oh, comedy writers are not funny, backstab, get in the way of comedy, and there's never any laughter.
And it was never good. Like, everything they say to each other where they cut on each other, we would do that to each other and then laugh at the reactions to it. Like, it was all, I have to say, it was all good natured. And if it wasn't good natured, you didn't last. Like, I feel like it's really rough over there. And I Love Lucy, if anyone offers you a job on I Love Lucy, don't take it.
So, and I think, I'm adjusting my camera here. I think one of the things that will segue into the Christmas picture is, if you have a difficult personality, you have to work around that personality. So I think what Lew is saying, which I agree with, is if you had people on a show and it was so difficult and so much, it stops working. Yeah. The creative process stops working. They either get rid of the people who's the problem, and if they can't, all the writers leave, which there's been sitcoms like that.
The show just collapses under its own weight. Exactly.
Right.
The whole thing that makes this worth it is the screwing around. I mean, the ratio of actual work to screwing around time, people would be appalled. It's amazing. It's
Well, I think in the writer's room, there's a lot of laughter, and then you have to pull it back. And so in our case, Phil was very good at being like, okay, now, especially if we were really getting huge laughs, he'd be like, oh, you guys are so funny. What about this piece of shit script we're on right now?
That's really good. What about here? What about
what about here? Can we channel it to there? So
go here,
So just my final thing, which because I'm glad, because you've been every part of the process, is it's a much more collaborative than is portrayed in Being the Ricardos. It's if it's that painful, it usually ends. Like, it doesn't last long. And there's an inherent trust when it's working that the actors have in the writers. Yeah. And I'm not saying this as a writer. I'm saying this just as that's the facts. And having said that, the actors bring their A game and make your material so much better. You're like, oh my goodness, this is great.
I think that, it's such a collaborative process, and I'm not going to go into Being the Ricardos, but it was really, it only takes one thing to screw up a show, but it takes everything working in concert to make it successful. So that's on every show that I've ever been on that succeeded, and I've been on some that have and some that have not, it only took one thing to screw it up. But in order for the successes to occur, everything had to work. Everything.
Right. It can get derailed at any point. So speaking of difficult personalities and trying to get along, let's go to the Christmas picture.
Sure.
So I posted a couple pictures that I don't know if you saw, but it's you as Snaps. We'll get into that. But it's one of the favorite episodes, the Raymond episodes for Christmas. And the fact that they play year round, because for us, it's this one-time Christmas thing and then it's done. But the fact that it's been in syndication and people have seen your Christmas episode, hundreds and hundreds of times. And I think let's just go back to the origin of that.
Can I just say something? There's a thing with Christmas shows when, as a writer, you get a little selfish. Sometimes you want it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes you want to write the Christmas episode because if it's good and it gets some attention, you're like, oh yeah, it can sort of become it can have some renown. But there's also the syndication thing where it's like, are they going to run it as much as they run anything else? Like, that's money out of your pocket, and especially in primetime reruns, they don't really rerun that. Like, a lot of times the networks I think they used to not run the Christmas episode like in June. I don't know why. You don't want to remind people of the great times to come. I don't know what happened. But But so sometimes you get burnt. But in syndication, it runs all the time. But I think that first network rerun check, you either didn't get. There was a chance it would run again at Christmas time the next year. So sometimes you did make that money. What an interesting story this is. I'm looking at the hard.
No. We just lost all our viewers, but I'm glued. No, but this is a very interesting thing that people are interested in. So what Lew is saying is, when you write a script, you get paid a full amount for the script, and I don't know what the amount is now, but I'm going to pick a number out of the hat. It's like, let's say it's $30,000, and maybe it's more, maybe it's less. $30,000.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So let's say it's $30,000. The second time they run it in prime time, it's half that. Yeah. So you're have a potential of $15,000. And let's say you're someone who has a lot of kids and you're trying to pay a mortgage. That's a consideration. So now all of a sudden, if you write the Christmas episode, which is like, oh yeah, it's a very special Christmas episode, but that's going to cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
it may not run the second time that year, because in summer reruns it might not run.
Right. Why?
I don't remember if it did or it didn't.
In prime time. So and syndication is different. Now, I was reading about I Love Lucy, where they didn't even run the Christmas episode initially in syndication, because they just thought, who wants to see it in July? Let's just pull it out. And offer your funny comment, which is like, it really is good feel. People love Christmas. Yeah. People love the time, at least the spirit, that it, and so. But it was a very naive beginning of syndication perception that the viewer's going to yell at the TV. It's July 9th. I can't watch.
Yeah, and never mind. Next week we're showing the Halloween episode, and no one has a problem with that. But whatever. They do that, and think of how many Jews had to come up with so many great feelings about Christmas. By the way, that weighs heavily on the Jewish comedy writer, because there's always the thing of like, I remember we were going to do an episode one year about Christmas, and it was getting into the whole thing of like, is there a Santa? Is there not a Santa? And Phil was like, I am not doing the episode where we reveal that there's no Santa Claus to America. He goes, I can't wait to get the letter, Dear Jew.
Yes,
we're not doing that.
So that was season one during the ball, and Phil would go, I'm not going to be the guy. I'm not going to tell kids there's no Santa.
Yeah, wait till Donald Trump is president, and he can say it to a 7-year-old kid.
All right, so now let's go back, because a Christmas episode, I wrote the jazz records, and that came out of something that happened to me in April in New Orleans. Nothing Christmas related at all. Where was the origin of the Christmas picture?
So the Christmas thing, first of all, we've talked about this. I've talked about this on this through Instagram Live before. A show got traction. A show idea gets traction in the Raymond writers' room when someone comes in and says, we're going through this thing. We had to get the Christmas picture taken this week. Oh, what a pain that was. And then someone will say, oh my God, with your kids, you shoot 1,500 exposures, maybe you get one usable photo. This is before Photoshop, when you could move people around from one year to the next.
Yeah. Swap heads. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Swap heads, but different bodies. And, but this was like, so I think I came in and said, we got to get all the kids in for a photo. And I think my mom, we thought our parents would love this. And so it came from that idea of that, you can't get your parents anything anyway. So that was another thing. Phil always talked about, you can't get your parents anything. And we've done a lot of shows about that, the toaster, et cetera. But so Ray and Robert start that episode with this whole thing of like, Ray thinks he has it on Robert this year. Robert's going to get his mom a hammock, which is hilarious that Doris Roberts could get in and out of a hammock. That was the whole joke that we set up there. And that Ray says, I'm going to get something even better, because I'm going to get her a family Christmas portrait photo. And he was like, how did you come up with that idea? Well, she told him. Marie said, Raymond, here's what I want. So he decides to do it. And then he has Deborah schedule it. And that's where it was a little different. Like, the hook to that whole episode was that Phil said that we got into this thing of like, well, Deborah's family should come to that. And the way we justified it was that Marie always got full custody of Christmas. She got Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. And so the whole thing was like, well, Deborah sort of floats the idea out of, well, maybe, you know, we could be in Connecticut on Christmas Eve and then come to you in the morning, and that would be great. And Doris was not having, I mean, Marie was not having it. You could see she couldn't understand the concept. No, she gets everything she wants all the time. No, this isn't happening.
And
so,
Lew, I'm going to stop you because I think you hit upon a thing that's super common with people who are married, which is, where do we spend Christmas if we have parents? And so it's an instant fight all the time because there's only one Christmas day, and the magic of children opening gifts plays into it. And
absolutely.
Just going back.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just going back to the point you said before, talking about not getting your parents gifts. In that episode, it's one of the few times a lot of other stuff from the series is referenced. So he talks about the toaster. He talks about the Fruit of the Month Club. You know, he's recounting stuff which you almost never did.
Yeah, we always let things exist in a vacuum where we didn't want to alienate someone who perhaps hadn't seen anything, so we tried not to do that. Right.
So now he's got now here's this dilemma that Deborah's present, a totally reasonable thing. And for those, for some of the people in Chechnya, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or Istanbul, Connecticut is about depending where in Connecticut, let's say about a 2.5, 3 hour ride from Ray's house. So Deborah's parents. Did we ever establish where the fans will know if we establish where they live in Connecticut? Does anybody watching know?
Did we say Greenwich? I feel like it might have been Greenwich.
Okay. Greenwich, yeah. The fans will know.
It was a little hoity-toity. I feel like it was
well, sorry. Do you remember, just going back to Robert Culp and Katherine Hellman, the characters were a little bit based on
Richard Rosenthal's in-laws.
Right.
And they always went on these exotic vacations, and they would, carry on about they went to Vietnam. That was the first, they'd gone to Vietnam, and that wasn't sitting that well with Phil, and therefore it didn't sit that well with Frank, Peter Boyle's character, where he was like, oh, really, they're going to Vietnam? And they were on their way, to Baden-Baden, to a spa in Baden-Baden.
Yes, in Baden-Baden. And so just going back to that, in 1996, when the show premiered, Vietnam in the U.S. was not a fun connotation. So I think Frank says it'll be more fun than Vietnam, which is a punchline. Now it's going to change over time. Right. But back then,
that does sound like a good trip.
yeah, exactly. Well, having been to Vietnam, it's a real nice place. But in 1996, Frank saying that just completely was a perfect punchline of that. So now, the introduction of the hoity-toity in-laws, which
I'm reading the comments. Someone said they went to Turkey one year. I think we did the joke of they went to Turkey for Thanksgiving. I think we might have done that. I think we might have done that joke. I mean,
we
apologize.
Karen would know. Yeah. I think in Connecticut. So if it's Greenwich, that's a funny little fact. So now Deborah introduces that idea, and Marie,
she introduced the idea of spending the holiday together, and then Marie really puts the kibosh on it. But so we think it's over, and then we go to the family portrait sitting appointment, which is the next week. And so Marie's going to have that photo for her Christmas gift. That's the thing. So so think of the time frame. We're a couple of weeks out from Christmas. Next week we're going to go get the picture taken. We're going to turn it around real fast because this photographer is great, and he's going to develop these photos, and we're going to have a nice portrait for Marie to have on Christmas Day. And so we get to the photo studio. Now here's where I made a terrible mistake. I had pitched that. My wife and I had gone to a pediatrician years before with our first kid, and I asked him at some point, "Do you have kids?" And he said, "No, but I have Irish setters, so I know what I'm dealing with," or something like that. He said something like to the effect, "I have dogs." So I said, when I was pitching the story out, and we were talking about it, I said, "Wouldn't it be funny if the photographer kind of has never worked with kids, but he's worked with dogs?" So the whole time, as things get more and more stressful, he goes like, "Okay, who wants to get a photo? Who's ready for a treat? Who's going to have it? Who's going to sit nice for a photo? Here we go. All right, sit." He does this dog thing. So for whatever reason, maybe it was low blood sugar or people were hungry or they just wanted to go home. It was a Friday or something. Phil goes, yeah, that's good. Write that. And I said, great. He goes, okay, and you'll be the guy. Because they'd laughed at me doing it in the room. So I said, oh, I'm going to be on TV again. Okay. So we get me the wardrobe that looks okay, and I'm going to be the guy. And we go to run through, and it stinks. It stinks. I stink. Let's not throw blame. I don't know. I don't know why it's stunk. And so we get back to the writer's room, and Phil goes, okay, well, that thing was the dog thing. That's terrible. And so I'm thinking, okay, that hurt. And now I realize why I'm a writer again. No more of that. Thank you.
Right.
You've cured me. Thank you. And he goes, well, what could he do? And I was proud of this, that I said, well, suppose the photographer is the guy who knows Robert because he used to be the crime scene photographer. And he would take pictures of like headless bodies and mangled car wreck victims and, victims of homicide. So Phil goes, great, you'll play that guy. And when I say, I'm like, I don't know that character. Like I've done such a lot of research on the other guy. But anyway, somehow now I'm that guy. And it did work out because Brad is so great because he recognizes, hey, Officer Barone, hey, snap.
Yeah. Well, there's a funny line, and I want to go back because you being thrown in the show, Lew, is a very interesting thing, especially time-wise where we are now. I'll speak to that. But there's a very funny line where you're talking about the decapitation, and it's just a great reminiscing moment. The good old days.
Yeah. The last time I saw him, it's been a while. What was it? I can't remember the guy's name. What was it? The DeForia decapitation? And we just go, yeah. Anyway, what you been up to?
Yeah. That was their life. So I'm going to go back though, because during the time of Evers Raymond, it was you very seldom did raise the star of the show. So that's not what I'm talking about. Very seldom would a writer be put into a show. There were very clear lines. Now, when the American version of The Office happened, all of a sudden it was like, right, you're in. And so there was like this mentality change. Just like, Lew, there was a complete paradigm shift with movie stars on TV. That never happened. That was coming down. Maybe John Wayne was on I Love Lucy, but for the most part,
no, that was a special cameo as himself.
Right.
It was never like, oh, you're going to see, Kate Winslet's going to be on a TV show. She wants to be on a TV show. She's going to. That's now because TV, it's these limited series. You can get great stars to be great parts in. And
it was completely taboo until, I don't know, maybe 15 years, maybe after The Sopranos and Breaking Bad, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, the stench. There were such good quality television series and so well respected that all of a sudden the stench of being on TV kind of went away.
To a lesser degree, by the way, I on the Goldbergs, I recur as the newscaster, and it's purely. And I know I just did one where I'm I've been downgraded to weather. It's purely because we can't get a clip from the 80s and something big is happening. So like we can't say thousands of people line coast to coast to join Hands Across America this week. And we could only use one clip of it. So they need somebody to lay that exposition out. So there I am. And and then I say, so Hands Across America is this week, and that's what I do. I take the place of a video clip, but they don't like to use the writer to do that. They feel like that's taking a job from a SAG actor. But I am a SAG actor, so they get around it that way because they say, well, he is in that union, he does pay his dues, so why can't he?
And just to go back even more, this specifically, you were the star of a show that Phil was a writer on.
Yeah.
So you were basically the Ray of a show where Phil was just a writer, right? He wasn't his show.
That is so overstated, but yes, I on that show, it was down the shore, and it was produced by an old buddy of Phil's, and that's where I met Phil. And every week I said one of two things. I said, guys, did it ever occur to you? Or, guys, did you ever stop to think? I was the guy, the thing that brought the wacky shenanigans to a halt for a moment while the world went, yeah, that would only happen in a weird sitcom. So that I got to do every week.
Yeah.
Years of comedy, and I got to stop the jokes abruptly every week.
Lou, that reminds me, I'm not going to say who, but you in the writer's room, there was occasionally someone who didn't work on the show very long. And she would go, I think we should cut this. And I should say, they would say, I think I'm going to cut this. And then you would say, comedy cited, comedy destroyed.
Target identified, target destroyed.
Okay, target identified.
You found the one joke on this page, and you're suggesting we cut it. I could have been nicer.
Yeah, well, it was just because it was, you're also taking time, and as we're doing it.
I used to call this, she's performing a radical comedy-ectomy.
And by the way, there are times when you have to lose jokes. Oh. And so it's not a matter of losing a joke. It's just that there's always this uncanny, this specificity.
I bring Liz and I'm like, Liz, see that? She says, what? I go, exactly. I just got some, I got some stuff out. I got some stuff out of the script right there. So
Lew, before we go, we have 30 minutes because people are asking if Liz is going to say hello. Does Lew know? Many people think he is the cruise director in Cruising with Marie.
Yes, that is. You know who that is.
Of course. So what you're talking about is, because I've seen it here in comments 2 years ago, where people go, he's the casting director, because
the cruise director.
Cruise director, rather. Lew, wasn't there a promo of Everose Raymond in a theater, and did you play the guy in the box office?
I played the guy in the box office, and I completely we ran an AMC promo with, like, we did something, all I know is we got AMC movie tickets out of it. But I remember that Ray and the cast came up to the ticket window, and they, as part of a promotion between between CBS and AMC theaters, and somehow, I don't remember. I had no memory of doing it, but there I was working in a movie theater, selling tickets to the cast. So
that's the first time somebody said, he looks like Hiram Caston, who is the cruise director, who's also a comedian that we all know forever. And that, just so you know, you don't have any idea how you got into that booth, etc. I saw that promo. I have no recollection of ever writing it, being involved in it happening, nothing, zero.
I will say this. I have no memory of any of that, but in true Everybody Loves Raymond fashion, I remember that we went to one of those Brazilian, not Fogo de Chao, but like a churrascaria type of steakhouse for lunch after.
Oh, that I remember. I do remember that. I didn't know that was tied to that. All right, back to the Christmas picture. We've established that Lew has already been on camera a ton of times. He's and you think when you're watching, you're going, wow, how lucky is he being in that episode? But it's more work. The one bit, which is funny about being the dog thing, I don't know why. There's a black box element to comedy where you go, don't know why it doesn't play, but it doesn't work. Yeah. And that's, I think, one of the things of a show that's willing to try, and you're allowed to fail because you keep coming up with better stuff versus you failed and stopped trying, you know?
The pressure to come up with I've never felt more pressure on the show, other than when my son almost got fired from when he was on the show. But that was a moment where I went, oh, I better come up with a fix. Otherwise, it's just a complete failure. Like, I pitched an episode, and now I was in it, and I almost ruined it, and I can't come up with a fix, and it's terrible, and there's no laugh there, and I suck.
Yes. And I think, by the way, one of the jobs of the showrunner, of the executive producer, is to be decisive. So he doesn't have time to mull over a lot of stuff. And I remember one time Ray and I came up with something for the end of, I want to say it was PT&A or something, where Frank is looking in the window as he looks in the door. The whole point of the story is this: it doesn't work. And Phil goes, put it back the way it was. And Ray and I were like, I think it's execution. Let's try it. So we ended up saving it. But one of the things that the showrunner can't be indecisive, and because there's the ship, you know, the train is leaving the station, so you can't mull over one joke. So the fact that he said, okay, let's do this, and then do you remember now that working in the run through the police?
You know what? It's I think it went okay at run through, and then it went even better in front of the audience because Brad and I had done it once, and so we really took the time to go. Man.
By the way, one of the funniest moments in the sitcom in that episode. Yeah.
Sometimes it's better just to shut up and look at each other. That's one thing we learned on that show. By the way, someone just asked me, have I ever considered doing stand-up? Or did I ever do stand-up?
Have you ever done stand-up is the question. I can give some of your credits, Lew, but so Lew started as a stand-up, started as a team, became a stand-up on his own, and you did how many one-man specials or whatever they termed it?
Just one. But
okay,
it's still out there on HBO. But I talk about the baby. The baby just turned 30, so it's a little old. I talk about how about phone answering machines? It's a little old.
Some of it is dated. Yeah. So. Yeah. Yes. So Lew, just to succinctly answer, Lew was a stand-up, known as a stand-up, a very successful stand-up, and then the star of a sitcom. So basically this exact same path as Ray.
Yeah. So that was what helped because I knew Ray from stand-up. So when they were putting together the writing staff of Everybody Loves Raymond, I was a guy, because I knew Phil and I knew Ray. I was sort of double approved. I didn't have to, I don't think anyone had to convince the other guy necessarily. Not that I was any good. It's just they both, the hell you know is better than the hell you don't know.
That speaks almost more to Ray's inability to trust people initially because he did all of his own jokes. So to trust that somebody else is funny, not intellectually, but in his gut, it helped that Lew.
He was great. He was great about that. He included a few of us, and that was, your present company included. We were all so lucky to have come through that. And Phil was great. Some TV writers are not necessarily going to be super excited about having stand-ups on the staff. There's going to be that thing of, well, sure, they can do jokes, but can they do story? And Phil's whole thing was, you have to be able to do both. And there are a lot of comics out there who come up to us and say, can I come in and punch up? And it almost never works. The jokes are great, but you don't have to pay someone a full salary to do just jokes. You can get those from the few people you have in there.
Yeah, and I think there's a case, just because we're on this, and we'll go back to some of these questions. We had, I'll just say who it was because he's brilliantly funny. Was Dave Attell. Dave Attell's a brilliant stand-up comedian, and he came into the writer's room. Phil wanted him in the Ray wanted him in the writer's room, and Phil loved him too as a stand-up. And it just didn't. We all loved him. We all wanted him to be the greatest.
He wanted to leave. We loved having him. I think he felt like, there sure is a lot of time talking about stuff between jokes. He was ready to.
Just specifically, Dave had trouble, I think, just writing. It just wasn't his milieu. And so I don't know what that means, but it sounded good. So I think, and that's a lesson for a lot of stuff, Phil was the perfect person to do Everybody Loves Raymond. It was a moment of this perfect channeling of his values, comedic senses, Ray's thing, all of that stuff together. And I think if you threw Phil onto 30 Rock, it would probably be tough. And so with Dave Attell, what Lew was talking about is for stand-ups to be let me just go in there and hammer out some jokes. Well, what we just said about the bit that Lew and Brad Garrett, Robert did, there isn't even a joke, and it's one of the biggest laughs. It's not a joke. And with the stand-up, you're really doing setup punchline in some form or the other.
You do adjust to the form. You realize, because you start watching it through the camera and you say, that joke is going to play because there's going to be a big moment there where we're going to go tight. We're going to go to a tight shot of Doris, or we're going to go to a tight shot of Peter. He's just going to look at her, and the audience will be on board. The audience will do the writing in their own heads. By the way, you don't get any money for that.
So off of that, Lew, someone asked, did you get paid as an actor and a writer for that episode?
Yeah, I did, but as an actor, you don't negotiate a deal. That's a SAG
minimum.
Minimum thing.
Yeah, and Lew has to get paid. Lew can't not. So it's not a matter of him going, okay, where's my money? They're like, Lew, sign this, do this. Here's your rate. Oh, okay.
No, they just throw you a SAG day rate.
Yeah, which is not. I mean, it's not that much.
It's not nothing, but it is. And you know what? Sometimes there's still occasionally checks.
The hundreds of dollars are just piling up in your garage.
I got a SAG check for 7 cents the other day.
Oh, that's good.
I did a voice on Ray, and I did some kind of caller, like when Ray was remember when Ray did the call-in radio show, and he was
with Kevin, maybe?
Yeah, with Kevin, and I was one of the callers, I think. I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. All right. Yes, I do. I don't remember you doing the voice, but I remember the episode. All right, back to the Christmas picture. It's the perfect storm of trying to appease Marie.
Yeah.
And
then Deborah, of course, at a moment of truth, her parents show up. And I think the audience, I had this as writing the show, because that wasn't in my original pitch. I was like, wait, her parents just show up? But we'd earned it. Phil explained to me, yes, because she would like to spend some of Christmas with her parents. Why can't they? It's a family photo. Why can't she be in it? She has a claim, not a great claim, but since she's already been wronged, the audience forgives her. Since she's already been told, you don't get any Christmas. You don't get any Christmas at all. So the fact that she went so far as to put her family in the Christmas photo and invite them, that doesn't go down well with Ray, and certainly doesn't go down well with Marie. And now you've got a real good old fashioned conflict in the end of the first act, where Marie is not going to be in the photo. She wanted it, and now she wants no part of it. And now everyone is waiting for her to join the family photo. And one of the people waiting for her is Robert Culp, who almost stole the show by going like this. As the photographer, I'm the ticking clock. I'm going, okay, let's go. We have to, I have other people. We have to shoot this photo. And Robert Culp does this we cut to the group waiting. Robert Culp took it on his own to take a hand mirror, and you cut to him, and he's just going like this. Robert Culp, super like hotshot sex symbol actor in the 60s, but now knows he's old, is going like this, checking to see if his bald spot is covered. He did that. He called an audible. He did that on his own. I'm telling you, he was so funny in that moment. I was so thrilled with that. That's where the actor finding something is just a golden nugget. Perfect. He was unbelievable.
So I'm gonna ask this logic question. I have my own theory. Leo is saying, why not just do 2 separate photos?
Because first of all, this is one of those things. Leo, I'm sorry you weren't in the room, because Phil would go, nobody cares about that, Leo. He would say, no, it's for one. You've paid for one family portrait. This is that you get one setting. This is what Ray is paying for. The deal was for one. Don't look too close, Leo. You're fired.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what happened. So yeah, it never occurred to us to do 2 and solve.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I was going to say, it feels like we would complicate it. It would diffuse the complication. It'd be like, because you would just extend the argument.
Because that wouldn't be funny. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, it wouldn't be funny. Just like I say now, sorry, it could be funny. You could but you've gotten your big impasse with Marie digging in. So if you go, what about a compromise? And we do 2, it kind of dilutes the comedy. And so you go, well, and then, because then you'd go, okay, well, let's have Deborah go, no, it's a family picture. We're not splitting up the families. And
she did such a great job. She's so plain in her reading there. She says, well, yes, Ray, you said family photo. And when she explained it to me, I bought it. When I'm watching the show and she says, you said family photo. Doesn't that mean family photo? I'm like, she is right about that. But Ray is so funny. He does one of those big Ray, like, oh, Little Debbie's Revenge. Oh,
yes.
Oh, yeah, he's so good. It's just a great husband and wife, and they can't have the fight in front of everybody. They can't. You cannot blow that up. The kids are there. It's so much social pressure. Good comedy is social pressure.
Yeah. And by the way, I did notice the kids are not around for the big heated stuff, and they bring the kids in, which was just a nice touch. And so, just going back to what Lew was saying, Leo, you weren't in the writer's room, and you could have been in that writer's room, and you would have that discussion. you could have that discussion, because what you're looking for, and this, one thing when I was reading the showrunner of I Love Lucy, he really did go, what's the logic on everything? Like, let's go back. Why? Yes, she's in a crazy situation, but why did she get? If the audience buys that they get there, because the moment the audience goes, wait a minute, that they're out comedically, they're out.
The more they love the people, the further journeys the farther afield you can go. But you got to be careful, because remember Fonzie, water skied over a shark, but they jumped the shark. But the fact is, you can make them go with you if. Phil's whole thing was always, could it happen? Could it happen? Not did it happen, could it happen? Will the audience buy it? And they would buy this. I feel like this passed that test. I didn't have a problem with this.
Yeah. So, okay. Hold on. Here's a question from Ken Shapiro. Ken, do you know the answer to this? Whose idea was dragging the chair with Marie? Was that, I don't know who directed that episode.
I think it was Halverson.
Oh, no, it was Will McKenzie.
It was Will McKenzie. Well, I do remember.
Could it have been Ken? Is Ken fishing for a compliment here?
Could have been Ken. It was so great it certainly wasn't me. I can tell you it wasn't me. But that idea that the chair, we put some stuff on the pads. We put those felt pads on the bottom of that thing, and it slid rather nicely with Doris in it. Which is, well, first of all, she sat down. She wasn't going to sit down, but then once she was not standing up, Ray realized in that moment we got to watch him make that decision.
Yeah.
He can push her into position.
Ken is saying it was not him. Oh. So Ken, I apologize to say that you were fishing for a compliment.
How about the fact that Ray finally loses his nut? The conflict between Ray and Robert at the end is played out, because the show had started with the conflict between Ray and Robert, who can get their mom a present. And
yes.
Ray lost his shit.
Yes. I don't want to point this out but I will, for people that are following along at home. The 100th episode of Rose Raymond was Wallpaper, also a time written by Lew Schneider when Ray Barone lost his stuff over the wallpaper after the parents went through the wall. Paula is saying it would have been funny if it was a Sears Photoshop studio and shoppers were walking by as Ray rages. Yes, would have been funny.
True.
Too late.
True.
It's
also,
too late.
Too late. Also nice and expensive. You have to build that set. We don't go out to do that anymore.
Well, yeah, off of that great suggestion, there is that factor if Lew said, hey, what about this? What about we have a whole bunch of shoppers or whatever? And then, so because there's a ripple effect, okay, let's call the line producer. Okay, how much does it cost to get this? We don't have room.
Yeah.
What do you mean we don't have room? No, we don't have room. We have that set, that set, that set. Yeah. Okay, forget it. Never mind. Thank you, Lisa.
We usually had what's called one swing set a week, occasionally two, and the second room was always bad because it was buried on the side of the audience. They watched it on a monitor as opposed to watching it out in front. The photo studio was right out in front of the audience. They could see it, and they responded better if they could see it right out in front, like they were watching a play. And so that's where that one was. So that worked out well.
Yes, absolutely. And just because people are into so much stuff, what Lew's talking about, you don't want a giant scene playing where it's to the side of the audience and the audience is just watching it as if it's on TV. So you love these great scenes where they can at least see and feel a part of the action, because there's a certain distancing you get when it's not, especially if it's a bigger scene. You can't really have a bigger scene in that thing. So a lot of considerations that go into not just what is the funniest thing, what is the funniest thing we can afford to do, and do we have room to do it on the stage? Do we have time?
I think the only one that I really thought scored that was ever on the side, buried next to the audience, might have been where in the toaster where Frank, they were in the when they went to Macy's and Frank said, I'm not some trophy wife, Doris says, and he says, what contest in hell did I win? I think that was shot on the side. And I think the audience laughed like they were watching on TV. I mean, it was a big laugh, huge.
Yes, Lew, excellent memory. I have the advantage of every day looking at pictures that are 20 years old. So it's very fresh in my mind. So the Warren, their set was to the left where the audience could see them. And the Macy's was right by the bleachers, so the audience could not see the Macy's. So they were across from each other. And Lew, I don't know if I'm going to post it or not. I might see there. I have a picture of you talking to Patty Heaton, and she is so pregnant that I go, how pregnant? How is that possible? She's so pregnant in this photo. Her hair and curl. Patty might kill me if I post that. So, off topic. On Men of a Certain Age, are the characters based on friends or coworkers? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I know
one in particular.
So we got to get back to the Christmas Picture, but Men of a Certain Age is a show that Ray did with Mike Royce, and it was a great show, won a Peabody Award, and a lot of people didn't see it. It was on TBS, and it was spread out. It was like, and it was a little bit Ray's fault, but a lot the network's fault, which is they aired.
We did that show for TNT, and I thought that that was going to be the last job I'd ever had. It was so much fun to work on. I thought we'll never have to work again. This is gonna go forever. Wrong.
Yes, and so it was on it won a Peabody Award. Peabody Award's a very prestigious award. I remember, Lou, I don't think you went to. I didn't go to the ceremony, but I remember Yoko Ono was running up the steps when I said goodbye to Ray and Royce and took some pictures, and then
went to that.
I didn't go.
Oh.
No, I just went outside of it.
Oh.
No, and so yeah, so one of the characters is loosely based on me, but very loosely, because I did have Lou. I don't know that I told it, but this is a slightly funny story. I'm driving back from a Buffalo Bills football game. For those not in the U.S., that's in the middle of nowhere, and the stadium is in the middle of nowhere, but it's everything to the. So I go with my friends. We have a crazy long journey, and I get a text from a friend of mine. Are you okay? Are you okay? I don't know what that means. I read the article that mentions you in the New York Times, and I said, okay, that's impossible. Like, there's no, I don't know. Like, is this a phishing thing? Like, but it turns out Ray, in an interview for the New York Times for Men of a Certain Age, mentions that the Scott Bakula character is mentioned on this certain guy, Tom Caltabiano, and he should blah, 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 whatever. And so, like in TV, as you know, because you put in a lot of fights on TV, a lot of your couple friends will be like, Lou, that's our life. Like, why are you writing about it? Or so, right? So everything that happened from then on in this series, people are like, did you really try and do that? I'm like, no, I didn't. It's TV. It's made up. It's a lot of it's made up. Anyway. So the yes, Men of a Certain Age was fantastic. It didn't go. If you guys ever have a chance to watch it, I know it's available places. It's phenomenal. And
only on HBO Max. I'm putting in a shameless plug. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Great.
But
yeah.
Can I just say this? Sean Hayter, who wrote on Men of a Certain Age, she just made the movie Coda, which is a great movie, and you should. Awesome.
Yeah, a great show, and it would have been. By the way, just for the big picture of show business, Ray pitched that show and had that show lined up to go on something called HBO, and HBO produced Everett Raymond. A wing of HBO called HBO Independent Productions is the reason that Everett Raymond happened. Letterman gave Ray a development deal. His friend knew somebody who worked at HBO. They linked up. That caused Everett Raymond. Men of a Certain Age is going to happen right after Everybody Loves Raymond, until the president of HBO gets fired and gets replaced by a woman who was not so concerned about men of a certain age. Yeah. And so that pitch that Ray had, it was all lined up. That went away. And I think it took 4 years to sell the show to another place.
And when it was canceled, it was about 6 months ahead of like when Netflix would have bought that show.
Absolutely. It's a heartbreak. And Lou, that's for those watching. This is a great story. In other words, meaning it got on the air. There's hundreds of stories of we shot the pilot and then and then that guy got fired. And so no one will ever see it. At least you could get a taste now. It would be better if it ran for 10 years, but you get a taste for what was possible in a different type of venue of Men of a Certain Age. And it predated Breaking Bad, I believe, because Breaking Bad was nobody wanted Breaking Bad.
Oh, no, it was on. It was sort of on at the same time. We used to talk about watching Breaking Bad in the room, and we used to say things like, it's a good show. Wish we were making a show that
good. Breaking Bad. All right, back to the Christmas episode, Lou. So was there anything, because you remember, and I put up some pictures of you from the table read, which was great, right? To see, I don't know if you looked at it yet, but you next to Brad getting a laugh. And here, I'll bring it up, Lew, because I know you're barely on. You're really only on Instagram because of my cajole.
I did for this.
So that obviously is the pivotal moment. But and there you are. And by the way, do you remember? Were you actually shooting photos?
No, I was trying. I had it. It was wired to a strobe, so there was no film, but the shutter did. The shutter did move the strobe. It did ignite the strobe. So
then, and there's you sitting next to Phil. And again, these are already on Instagram for people.
Oh my God.
If you want to watch. And then this is one of my favorite ones. Here's you touching your ear or something. But here, this one is great. You and Brad at the table.
Yeah.
Reed. You can see it much clearer, everybody.
I was probably still doing the dog guy then. But
the curtain call. Yeah, you were doing the dog guy. And that's the curtain call. Hard to see it on my phone, but much better on Instagram. And so, and I have a few more from you from the notes. So I think, Lew, such a great story, such a great episode, because the amount of tension, and I raced past it, but somebody was saying their mother wanted to get a Christmas picture with all 5 of their kids, and it never happened over 30 years. So, and I think also back then, the iPhone didn't exist. So pictures, you did go to a professional photographer much more often than now.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Now everybody has a camera and you can shoot 1,500 and hope for one good one. And yeah, in those days, remember when we were little kids, they would put us in like little overalls and shorts and things, and they'd sit us on some, you'd be put onto various carpeted surfaces, and they'd hand you a ball or something, and they'd jump around, and you would laugh, and they'd take that picture. Yeah. I mean, the days of the posed family portrait. Now you got these people who go out to the beach in matching khakis and white shirts, and they do that. But and that's usually some professional photographer. But that never bothers. I don't buy that. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that happiness from that.
Lew, a couple more questions for you. Who did you watch? Hello. Someone named Liz Abbey is also commenting. Hello, Liz.
That's my wife, folks.
Who did you grow up watching, Lew? I mean, comedians.
Well, before he was, terribly discredited, Bill Cosby was a staple of mine. I used to listen to the record albums. Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner, the 2,000-Year-Old Man, when I was real young. And then, of course, Steve Martin changed my life. And Richard Pryor changed my life. George Carlin. And then, then guys that I worked with. I mean, I used to, love to watch Ray, Jon Stewart, Attell, guys like Alan Havey, Alan Havey, who did Men of a Certain Age. So many, now, John Mulaney, Jim Gaffigan, Kevin, Hannibal Buress, and I mean, there's so many now too that I can't. I think Brian Regan. There's no, Brian Regan was also a contemporary of mine growing up, and he was great.
Yeah, and I think just because it's such a charged thing, Bill Cosby was so revered until recently. So he was also Ray's biggest influence, without any question, because
the idea that someone could tell a story. That just could just tell a story, not like joke to joke to joke. I was already ready to give up the Henny Youngmans and the Rodney Dangerfields. Although Rodney told jokes, I wasn't into that. I wanted to hear someone's personality. I wanted to see someone do a character. Like even Woody Allen was discredited, but I wanted to see a perspective, a comic perspective, and those guys had comic perspectives. Although Steve Martin, absurdist, but so funny.
Right. And I think off of that type of stand-up, there were guys like Stephen Wright who were just genius, but you kind of don't know anything about him.
You could almost read. It's the old thing. If you could almost read the jokes, you could. I mean, but Seinfeld, straddled that line. You could almost read his jokes too, but then you watch him do those observations. Nobody better. So technically sound. Nobody better.
Yeah. And I remember actually listening to a Woody Allen bit with Ray, the Moose bit, and Ray's like, but it's completely made up. Ray is so grounded in what it is, and it's, by the way, completely different styles.
Yep.
All right, Lew, let's do a few more questions because guess what? It's already been close to an hour. That's right. So luckily you wrote a ton of episodes. So Lew, do you like any of the British comedians like Ricky Gervais?
Yes. I still think I'm going to get roundly vilified for this. I like the British Office better than the American Office, and I love the American Office.
Oh.
But I love the British Office purely because the character of Gareth as compared to the character of Dwight Schrute makes more sense to me. You understand this guy came from a military background. His family was military. So his desire to be the assistant manager or assistant to the general manager, assistant to the manager is such a real thing for him. Like you can see it making him crazy. And so that character seems more grounded to me. And so that breaks the tie for me. That is why I like the British Office.
So you enjoy them both only because we do know people from both shows. And again, this is Tom Caltabano. I'm talking to Lew Schneider, who played Snaps on this Christmas Picture episode that we're talking about and wrote a ton of episodes. Lew, did your writing style change from season 1 to season 9?
Yeah, I will say one thing. In season 1, I had a million ideas. By season 9, I think, did we do the faux pas in season 9?
Someone asked about that, by the way.
I think we did the faux pas, and I think I have one, and I pitched it, and Phil was kind of lukewarm on it, and I was like, well, he goes, what else do you have? Nothing. That's my contribution to season 9. That's all I have, and we did it, and Phil figured it out. Can I read something here? This is the following is an excerpt of the transcript of the photo session for my 2001 New Year's card held on November 26th. Weather conditions, sunny, temperature 72, light variable winds. My 3 kids, Marty, Leo, and Jake, had eaten breakfast, bathed, dressed, haired, combed by 9:30. Following transcript. The following transpired 10 or 15 minutes into the session. My wife is taking the picture. Liz says, after 150 photos, I don't think we have anything yet. I say, no, the light was bad and they were moving. How many shots do you have left? 8. So we've shot 16? Right. So none of them are good. I don't think so. This is a nightmare. What about the one in the fort? Marty was doing that thing with the tongue. Oh, God. Okay, guys, go on. Anyway, it goes on like this. And now, off the thing with the tongue, can I tell this story about how Marty, my son, was on an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond and almost got fired?
Yes.
There was an episode where Brad, Robert's character, comes to
the school
for Allie's career day, and she brings someone she admires, her uncle, the police officer, and he comes and he talks to the kids, and then he says, any questions? And we cut to the classroom full of kids, and some of those are populated with the writer's kids. And Julia Scrovan asked a question, and it's a good question, how tall are you? I'm tall enough, whatever. And some of the other kids asked a question. And then Marty, and if we have time for one more question, he points at my little son, who is 6, and he says, yes, you. And Marty says, are you going to eat us? And he asked with a straight face. And then Marty goes like this, are you going to eat us? and Brad says, not right now, or I don't think so. And whatever. And Phil goes, what's he doing with his tongue? Phil is sitting there watching this take place. He goes, what's he doing with his tongue? I don't know. Tell him to stop. So I have to go up. Everyone's watching. I had to go up to the kid, my poor little baby, and say, Marty, what are you doing with your tongue? And he says, he's so funny. I'm trying not to laugh. I said, okay, but you can't do that. He says, it feels like if he keeps doing that, we can't use it. I'm like, I know. Don't fire me. Don't fire him. Don't fire me. Don't fire anyone. And I almost quit the show because my poor baby. I was like, that's why you don't put your kids in show business.
Show business, yeah. Oh God. Lou, was this filming or run through?
No, that was that we were shooting it. We shot that was a pre-shoot.
Pre-shoot, okay.
We pre-shot that because we knew some kid would do something with his tongue. But anyway, it's so crazy, so crazy. Yeah, I want to kill Phil Rosenthal. No, I love.
Yeah. Well, Phil was on task. He can't, what we talked about before. He doesn't have time for feelings. And Lou says, Karen says that your wife corrected you that Marty was 7 and not 6.
That's probably true.
Okay. Thank you for that, Liz. And by the way, Liz has to say hi next time because she was a favorite. So, Lou, the faux pas, and again, this is Tom Caltabano. I'm talking to Lew Schneider, who played Snaps in that episode because a lot of people are writing in. Is that Snaps?
Let's see how. Does anyone remember what the character's real name was?
Snaps?
Yeah.
Real name.
You know?
Boy, I wish we had a prize because somebody will know it. Excuse me. Hold on.
Oh my God.
Mm.
Wow, what a premium.
Yeah.
Oh.
Delightful somebody feed Phil mug to try and keep me from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Yeah. What was Snaps in, when was his name said?
Brad says it. I mean, Robert says Snaps.
Oh.
I think I gave him the name Snaps. I said his name should be Snaps because he snaps photos. He's just,
Okay. Officer Barone.
yes, officer.
You reply to him, yeah. All right, so Lew, when we talk about the faux pas, because there's a super, I'm going to tease the next time you're on. That is if you don't block my text.
Sure.
The faux pas has a very interesting history because of something related to Ray not getting divorced in real life, because if we did this faux pas in a different way, it would have stepped on his something very close to his family. I'll leave it at that.
That's right.
Yes.
Oh my, I haven't thought of this in a long time. Okay,
yeah.
leave it at that.
So when people are saying, well, why don't you just do this or this? It's like there's so many factors potentially that you as the audience have no idea about.
Yeah, sometimes you have to wait for people to die.
Well,
we can't do this till someone dies, then we can do it.
To be honest, when you mentioned Phil's brother's in-laws, I'm like, I think he was worried about offending them.
He was, and they have passed away. But he was, even at the time, he was. Oh, his mother used to say, "Philip, I have to see those people."
Yes.
My problem.
Yeah, not my problem. Oh well, Steve Golden.
Stephen Golden, correct.
Yes. Thank you, everybody checking. Thank you, Bobby.
Everybody there.
Yes. Oh, Liz, nice hair, Liz.
Oh yeah, I combed that for you.
Nice, very nice.
There she is.
So by the way, it is a very funny with your kids that Marty delivered that perfectly. I will say, are you going to eat us?
Yes, I thought he was going to be fired from television, and I was going to have to follow him.
This is how so hard to get the picture.
We got them. There they are.
There they are. It's
Is that the photo? That's the photo.
Those are the professional
These
ones.
are pros.
All the rest are so.
Of that year?
Yeah, probably that right in there. Yeah.
This was what year
this
was
is
the Christmas picture?
2001 no, season 4. So
Season 4, 1999.
1999. So
this,
1999. Yeah, 2000.
yep, here it is. Here's
That's
19.
That's 98.
So this would have been taken. This was taken
that
in
was
98.
a professional.
This is a professional taken in 98.
And then we just took them ourselves. So
Who
freaking
cares?
hard.
Who cares?
What are they doing?
Oh my God.
By the way, so is that, just going back, it was film. It wasn't unlimited like nowadays.
Right.
And I only because you know who this is, my friend Wendy, who's married to Steve, I took their family picture the last 2 years because of COVID, because they're a normal person. So,
just got that.
Okay.
Great job.
But that was about 600 photos. I'm not kidding, because there's also 2 dogs involved. So now the amount of photos, it was astounding. So very relatable. All right.
Those boys are very handsome, Tom. Nice job. Really good.
Yes, but it's a forever relatable event, is trying to get them together. All right, Lew, I'll see you again, hopefully very soon.
Whenever you're ready,
Watch.
we'll
Do we look for you on the Goldbergs?
Yes, we're still making the Goldbergs.
When is the Goldbergs on the air?
The Goldbergs is on when the Goldbergs are. The show is on Wednesday nights on ABC at 8:00. And
Wednesday night.
And
yes.
Also, I live for the Twitter followers. So
Twitter.
Follow me at Not That Lew, NATNOTTHATLEW.
Not That Lew. I'll put it in. I'll put it in one of my posts. I think I have very little Twitter followers on Everyone's Raymond 360, but I will start posting more, and I'll put that on there, Lew, because you like to be funny, and Twitter is a good place for that.
It's where the jokes go to die.
All right. So we'll see you very soon, Lew. Thanks, and a little bit more from Liz next time. But that was perfect. That was perfect.
I'm sorry for reading that thing. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for caring. Have a happy New Year, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lew.